All right, let's
Okay.
get started. Do you want to introduce this week's topic? Your topic.
It is. It should be a little bit more clickbaity. It's the most likely player who was under the age of 25 to go ringless in their career.
Um, just to be clear here, technically, I chose a player that was 25. Is that okay, Nick?
That is fine.
Okay.
Uh, Maybe 25 and under if you have to specify that.
Beautiful.
Um, Interesting. I think we've picked different players then, because I'm pretty sure I know the age of my player.
All right, who did you pick?
So you wanted me to lead?
Sure, it's your topic.
It's all right. So good. I have selected from the Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant. Obviously a hot topic this season. Obviously having what some could consider an MVP season. Maybe if the field wasn't as competitive as it was. Definitely consideration for most improved player. But the reason why I'm selecting him, there's a couple of tangents I can go on. We're going to go with the really first easy, obvious one. His style of play is quite prone to injuries. He's already had a couple of tweaks this season. He had a knee issue. He went down right after the All-Star break with a hip issue. He's very lateral, very quick, very explosive. And he's at the age of 22 currently. So he's springy. He's can become rejuvenated really easy, and he can just keep going. That's not sustainable. Westbrook might be a decent example of someone who got a decent leg out of that athleticism, but eventually getting the meniscus tear. And then once you get one, it really doesn't stop. Derrick Rose is obviously another parallel that he's constantly getting. And, that was a big ACL concern. But if it didn't, let's say the no injuries occur, so touch wood, he has a great career. Here are the amount of point guards or guards in general, scoring guards that have been unsuccessful in ever achieving a championship. Allen Iverson, Stephen Marbury, Damian Lillard, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose. And there are a handful of others, but definitely not as potent as him. So it's just not common for a slashing guard to lead their teams to a championship. There are a couple of anomalies. You look at Dwayne Wade, for example, but you could make a case to say that Shaq is there. You can make a case that Kyrie is a little bit like that, but obviously LeBron team is a little bit of a different thing. And the reason why we factor in this, he currently averages about 15 points in the paint per game of his 27 points. So he scores more in than out, and that's both an injury concern, but also not sustainable. And then there's also a playoff aspect as well. People aren't going to let you score in the paint as much as that. Because some of those paint points also come from fast breaks, for example. And then if we ignore those two things, we're talking about a franchise that in the last 10 seasons has only won 3 playoff series, one of which was a conference finals appearance. And no disrespect to the Memphis Grizzlies, but if you look up their notable players, you have Zach Randolph, Markin Pau Gasol, Sharif Abdul-Rahim, Mike Conley, Tony Allen, Shane Battier, Rudy Gay, James Posey, Mike Miller. This is a franchise that hasn't really shown that they can attract people or build a team that is competitive. And the grit and grind Grizzlies are fantastic, but I think that's how the Grizzlies timeline kind of plays out. It's always this Cinderella story, this small market team that's done really, really well, and it's not really a sustainable model for success. And whether or not he stays with the Grizzlies may be the ticket to getting a ring, but he's there till at least 27, 28 based on those rookie extensions and whatnot. And that is my player who I think will go ringless in their career.
Look, I think all your points have some valid merit. I think though, I think Ja Morant has a high chance of winning a ring, despite his style of play. I think you touched upon it. It's clear that he's a superstar. But what's unsure is whether he'll be one that flames out. Unfortunate injuries like D Rose, obviously after his MVP season at 22, or John Wall maybe is another player that springs to mind that obviously
Oh, yeah.
was an all-star, but obviously injuries really hampered sort of in his late 20s and sort of hampered his game at that point and his sort of the style of play that he played. Or obviously he has a much more long-lasting career like, say, Allen Iverson, even, and obviously that sort of slashing lead guard, shoots a lot, lots of athlete, lot of huge athlete on the floor, and that sort of career that could be his ceiling. Ja Morant could be a Hall of Famer. all right, if he can stay healthy for 15 seasons, okay? But I guess there is some level of risk that he could get injured due to his style of play if he doesn't make any adjustments. But I think there's a point that you touched on that I'm going to disagree with. I think Memphis has done a good job of surrounding him with the right supporting cast at the right ages. And that's important. Okay. I think that group has still got a ceiling to grow. Jaren Jackson Jr., Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bain has been a huge find this season, having a career year as well. And they're all young. They're all under 25. Obviously, putting a few veterans in the right spots, Kyle Anderson, and now with Steven Adams there, and just making some tweaks at some point. I don't know. This year, look, I'm not picking them to make the finals, obviously, but I think they could definitely cause some upsets, maybe conference finals, perhaps. But they've still got a lot of room for growth. And what that means is that it's not all on Ja. I think that they can sustain that he could be really, really good, but he doesn't have to be exceptional. He doesn't have to average 30 points a game. He could just average 25, but also find a balance across the board with how this team is structured to succeed. I think that's an important point there because obviously, without a supporting cast, like a ring is not just one player. A ring is a supporting cast, and I think he's still in a position that at Memphis, if they make the right sort of steps in the next few seasons, he would continue to be on a contender and could really, could get himself to that spot. Obviously, there are risks to his style of play. That's a no-brainer. But I think, I don't know. I think I would almost make a guess that you could say in a few years' time, by the time it's like 25, how old is he now? Like 22, something like that?
22.
Yeah. So by the time he's 25, you're not going to see Ja Morant in the top 10 highlight reels as much as you see him now, because simply by sheer virtue of aging, that his game will start to adapt, and he can't shoot that well yet. In all honesty, as much he gets a lot of his points in the paint and things like that. He goes away, put some work in the off season on adding a jump shot, a 3-pointer as well, and sort of increasing those sort of volumes along with the sort of style that he already plays. We're already talking to him about him as a potential MVP candidate for the next five years easily if he continues this way. So I think there's still a high chance that Memphis could really get that ring. So that's obviously why I did not pick Ja Morant, because I guess I did pick a player in the West as well. And I picked Donovan Mitchell. Okay, he's 25. Okay, he's an all-star. He's a superstar. In fact, pulling up his stats, he's never averaged less than 20 points a game. At the moment, is at 25, 4, and 5. His team's good. Okay, his team's good. Utah are great. They've surrounded him with really good players, including Defensive Player of the Year, some veteran players and role players and shooters, and just a deep bench as well with Clarkson and obviously Whiteside now, and in that sort of role to come off the bench. And they're good, but I think taking sort of the same sort of taking Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies, where they're still all young, they surrounded Morant with obviously a supporting cast that is older. And Gobert is 29 now. Conley's 34. Conley's already on the decline. Okay, he's still a great veteran point guard, but is Conley a starting championship guard? You'd probably have to say if they don't win it this year, it's probably not going to happen next year either. That's the thing. And his supporting cast is getting older. This team sort of really reminds me of like Sacramento back in the day, when obviously they were obviously a really good team. They obviously got the conference finals. Chris Webber, Divac, who was that? Stojakovic, Bibi. They were a really deep team, but they couldn't get over the bump even in the West. Some of the stats here for obviously Utah: last 3 seasons, lost conference finals, lost first round, and lost first round. They're the last 3 years. Okay, they're a deep team. They win a lot of games, 50+ games all these years. 2 or 3 of those last 3 seasons, but they're not constructed to win a ring. And I don't think Donovan Mitchell as much as he probably, doesn't want to hear this, is a win, is a championship #1 option. That's the reality. I think the only way he would win a ring is that if he goes to another team, ultimately, that he's probably the second option, or ultimately somehow, and I don't see how Utah would do this again, because they're not a huge destination that free agents want to sign at, somehow swing a trade to bring some more younger talent in that sort of his age bracket, around the 25 sort of years old sort of bracket to pair with him. And I can't even picture a player that fits that mold that would come to Utah to pair with him. And I guess, look, here's my prediction for Donovan Mitchell, that he's probably got more of a career path of like Lillard. Lillard was a superstar in Portland for many years and a #1 option there. And, they got to the conference finals, that season. And that was the peak. And then they struggled to get out of the first round. And then now Lillard's injured. He's now on the other side of 30. It didn't work. It didn't work in Portland. And if he continues to stay in Utah, and even if he went somewhere else, I think Donovan Mitchell is not going to win a ring. I think he's going to have another career like Vince Carter, slam dunk champ, great athlete, all-star, but a high probability that he might not ever get a ring.
I actually don't want to really disagree with any of that. Utah is a free agent destination that people avoid. They've done a couple of trades, as you alluded to. Bogdanovich is another one that, they brought in a wing. They have a Sixth Man of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, a potential Coach of the Year, and a couple of All-Stars. It doesn't work. I think one thing you skipped over is Donovan Mitchell as well actually has lower leg issues. I think he's had a couple of ankle or foot injuries, and that's kept him out in weird games. And there's a couple of issues with that. And his style of play, again, he's a slashing guard, and he again doesn't have a very good shot. And I think what the general gist of this topic ended up turning into is, if we did another debate, could or can guards who are scoring guards actually lead teams to championships? Because if you go through the list of scoring guards that win championships, you can always find a bit of an asterisk, right? Like Kyrie was the one that I found, but Kevin Love and LeBron James aren't exactly scrubs, and they played a role. What do you call it? Who's the other one? Jeez, Dwayne Wade with Shaquille O'Neal as well, and obviously like a pretty stacked team as well for what it was. But then who else is there? Because Kobe is a six.
Steph Curry.
And Steph Curry, technically speaking, Steph Curry won one championship with the Draymond and Clay version, and then the other two were done with Kevin Durant as well. So he snuck one in as almost a central focus, not winning the Finals MVP for that anyway. But other than that, like guards have a role to play in championship teams, but the role to play or the Finals MVP, I don't think that's, even Jerry West. I looked at Jerry West and thought about putting him in because he was a scoring guard back in the 50s, 60s, and he made the Finals 9 times and won once. So it's not like that style of play was successful 70 years ago when everyone was a dentist, So I think what the challenge would have been. I wanted to pick. I looked at Jason Tatum, for example. It doesn't feel right. It feels like he's a forward. He's a two-way player. He can get it right. He'll get there.
I think it's definitely clear that being a guard to win a championship, you need the right pieces around you to suit your style of play and to be at the right timeline. You alluded to Bogdanovich in Utah. I just Googled that. He's 32 as well. He's on the wrong side of 30. Donovan Mitchell doesn't have that growth available to him at Utah. They've hit their ceiling already, and their ceiling is probably second round. That's probably it. Best case scenario, second round. If they hit conference finals, that's a overachievement already to a certain extent. It feels like it, and that means they've gone past, Denver up and coming, Dallas up and coming, Golden State still now, all these other, obviously Suns as well at the moment, and all these upcoming teams that are knocking on the door there. But Utah haven't got over that hump. I think Memphis, and going back to Ja Morant, they're still knocking. They're looking to make the playoffs now. They're looking to start to make that run of playoff experiences. And I think that they still have a chance to change the narrative that they can get to that ring and win a ring if they take the right steps, because they're going to probably get to a second round, or maybe a conference final, some level of disappointment that's quite stinging. and then they're going to make some. They got a potential there to make some moves because they've got the young talent, and there's still the growth of who they keep that can get better. Okay, and that's really critical. All right, and then obviously at that point, can they get over the hump? So it's almost like Utah 4 years ago. All right, 5 years ago when Mitchell arrived. Okay, but obviously that's where Memphis are at this point. So I guess that's obviously I think Ja still has a huge potential, but obviously Donovan Mitchell, I think based on your topic here, is my pick obviously for not winning a ring.